It seems the liberal left can't stop themselves. They have to dance on the grave, almost literally, of Charlie Kirk. And of course, the only way they can slander him in death is to lie about him. We've got some horrendous examples of that to show you. The first one is probably the worst. It comes from none other than the old gray lady, the New York Times, the paper of record, they like to tell us. They wrote an obituary of Charlie Kirk. In the headline, they called him a provocateur, because he was asking for it. But apparently, they made a bit of a factual error. During the writing of the obituary, they had to find something horrible that he said to explain to the readers of the New York Times on the Upper West Side why Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So they laid out there all the anti-Semitic things that he said, because he hated Jews. And then today came this correction. Check it out. Correction was made on September 11th. An earlier version of this article described incorrectly an anti-Semitic statement that Charlie Kirk had made on an episode of his podcast. He was quoting a statement from a post on social media and went on to critique it. It was not his own statement. In other words, Charlie was doing his podcast and he was reading something horrible that something had said, something I do on this show every day. Usually it's something horrible some Democrat says in the New York Times. And then the Times took that, Charlie Kirk reading some horrible thing some other person said, which he then turned around and criticized and attacked and disavowed. They left that part out and printed that he had said the horrible anti-Semitic thing. And I had to tell you something, as a person who has worked in journalism for, almost 2 decades now, that kind of fact is the easiest kind of fact to check. Whoever wrote the original article for the New York Times did not discover their error at the time because they didn't look for it. They didn't want to discover it. In fact, it didn't even occur to them. They saw the thing that Charlie Kirk said, and based on their predisposition against him and their presupposition of who he was, it made sense that he would say that, so let's go run with it. They're disgusting. By the way, David Burge of Iowa Hawk blog contextualized this correction beautifully by saying, "We regret the error. Now back to the latest official casualty statistics from Hamas," because this is what the New York Times does every day. They don't care about the sources that deliver them lies. They print the lies because those lies fit their agenda, their political point of view. But that's just the beginning of the lies that were told about Charlie by the organized, respectable, elitist left. That's the New York Times. You don't get more respectable than that. And here's Stephen King, best-selling novelist on the planet and a crazy, deranged, Trump-hating leftist. He decided that it would be a really great idea to take a post honoring Charlie. I got to pause here for a second. Why can't they let us mourn? Why do they have to stick their nose into our grief and our sorrow? I'm not asking you to love Charlie Kirk. I'm not asking you to like him or even respect him. You can hate him. Just leave us alone. Let us grieve him. Let us love him. Let us go through this process. Why do you have to butt your nose in and urinate all over our parade? But that's what Stephen King decided to do. Here's Jesse Waters. He posted a video tribute to Charlie. And again, remember, think about the demented mind that it takes to be Stephen King in this moment, knowing that Jesse is not just reporting on a figure in the movement and the murder of an important political figure and media figure. No, Stephen King knows full well that Jesse Waters had a personal relationship with Charlie Kirk. And that's the other thing. They get off on this. They love crapping all over us in our grief, not just for an important political figure and an important voice, but also someone that we had a relationship with. Who does that? Who goes out of their way and says, oh, these people are feeling sorrow because this person has died, so now I'm going to jump in there and tell them why the person they're sad about is a piece of garbage? Which is what Stephen King decided to do. Jesse Waters posts, Charlie Kirk was not a controversial or polarizing man. Charlie was a patriot. This is a turning point, and we all need to turn in the right direction. Rest in peace. So, of course, Stephen King, he needs to defecate all over it. So he says, he advocated stoning gays to death. Just saying. The man's a monster. I was about to say there was something wrong with him mentally, but actually, no, that's too easy. He's too smart. He's too focused. He's fine. He's not mentally incapacitated. He doesn't suffer from bipolar disease. He's not got clinical depression. No. He's actually mentally sound as a board. He's just an evil piece of shit is what he is. You have to have a special kind of evil to decide, yep, I'm going to do this now. Hang on. I'll show him. I'll show you. Oh, you're sad? You're sad about this guy dying? Here, let me jump in there. He advocating stoning gays to death, just saying, says Stephen King. Now, this caused quite the uproar, as you can imagine, including and most specifically from gay conservatives who knew Charlie well and knew that Charlie actually was quite the opposite. In fact, I don't know if this ever came publicly or not, but I know privately, Charlie actually took some criticism from some Christian conservatives because Charlie was so open to gay conservatives in the movement and said, listen, what you do in your bedroom is your business. I disagree with you. I think it's sinful. But if you agree with me and you're part of the conservative movement, welcome aboard. That's how Charlie was. And by the way, that's pretty much how I am as well. But there are some who think, no, that's wrong. We should always condemn and we should always, not be that. I don't want to get into that. But I know that Charlie got some criticism from people in the conservative movement for being as open to gay conservatives as he was. I don't know, David Rubin, I think Guy Benson, I think a couple of other people who were openly gay and conservative, they punched back at Stephen King and basically told him to go F himself. So Stephen King then deleted his original post that you're looking at right now and then put out his apology. Now look at his apology post. I apologize for saying Charlie Kirk advocated stoning gays. What he actually demonstrated was how some people cherry pick biblical passages. Now, I don't actually have any idea what the hell he's talking about there with regard to cherry picking biblical passages. And the fact that he had to not just let his, I apologize for saying Charlie Kirk advocated stoning gays. I was wrong, period, is the way you do it, Steve. I'm sorry. I know that you're like a Pulitzer Prize winning best-selling novelist with a gajillion copies of your book sold. So forgive me for giving you a rewrite, but let me help you with the English language and explain to you how you properly apologize for getting something wrong. But no, he couldn't even do that. He had to equivocate it in some way and still have it be some bash against Bible-believing, faith-based individuals who dare to think that perhaps homosexual acts are sinful because, well, that's what our religion teaches us. So his apology is, I apologize for saying Charlie Kirk advocated stoning gays. What he actually demonstrated was how some people cherry pick biblical passages. And we're all supposed to be grateful that Stephen King apologized. And by the way, it's been pointed out that Charlie probably would have accepted that apology and then invited Stephen onto his show to talk it out. And Stephen, I'm sure, would have declined because we don't want to platform people like Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to grace you with my presence. Yeah, trust me. You'd be the one receiving the grace, Steve. I, for one, I am not grateful for his apology, and I'm not going to bend over backwards to say, okay, let's give credit where it's due. He apologized, because it's not really an apology, number one. And number two, as Jarvis points out properly, I would like to commend Stephen King, who, in a moment of humility that is all too rare in our current internet culture, admitted to making a minor factual error while celebrating the murder of his political opponent. That was big of him. That's right. I'm sorry, he doesn't get any credit for acknowledging that he was wrong about what Charlie Kirk advocated, because the original sin, if I may use that phrase, Stephen King, was the fact that you decided to jump in and celebrate Charlie's murder in the first place. You should have just kept your phone down or used it for whatever other nefarious purpose you've got in mind and leave us alone in our grief. That's kind of all we're asking right now. And Jarvis is great. Well done. Meanwhile, those are sort of the subtler kind of ways that people had to lie about Charlie Kirk and then afterwards sort of mea culpa it and apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh. But then there was the more overt, in your face, unabashed, unapologetic, hateful rhetoric that you get from, well, kind of who you'd expect to get it from. Congresswoman, is she still a congresswoman? Yeah, really? Great job, Minnesota. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar with Mehdi Hassan, who, of course, works for some terror-funding Middle East organization there who wants to make sure that his obnoxious views get heard. Here they were talking about Charlie Kirk. And can you feel the love here from these two? Let's check out the love, compassion, and understanding from our bleeding heart liberal leftists who are just full of empathy for their fellow man.
What I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's the sympathetic, empathetic, feel the love liberal left in America. Did you notice the little jujitsu there? This is what I love about them. If you suddenly don't immediately pivot on every biological, scientific, and Western civilizational norm that we have known for millennia, that there are two sexes, male and female, and there ain't nothing else. If you don't immediately disregard that truth and adopt the idea that there are now 85 genders, pick and choose whatever you'd like, you're not wrong. We don't respectfully disagree. No, if you're not on board and follow them allowing boys into girls' locker rooms and boys into girls' sports and boys into girls' bathrooms, if you dare to say that if you're a heterosexual man and you're attracted to women, therefore you will not date a man dressed up like a woman, you know, because that's hateful. If you don't go all in on every little aspect of their warped transgender activism, they will call you a hateful bigot. The Juneteenth holiday has only been in existence at the federal level for 6 years. And if you voice your opinion and say, yeah, I don't think it should be a federal holiday, I'm sorry. You are, in her words, downplaying slavery. That's how she put. Oh, yeah. So if you're not on board with a holiday that didn't exist until, you know, just a handful of years ago, and you dare to say, yeah, I disagree, you're downplaying slavery. and therefore a racist. This is what they do. They keep moving the line of what is extreme and extreme and extreme and extreme so far. And if you don't follow them down that line, they will call you the extremist, even though you haven't budged where you are. You believe exactly what you believe today, what you believed 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, they were so much closer to you. But now they've moved so far away and force you to accept the extremes as norm. And if you dare to question it or challenge it, you are the hateful, racist, xenophobic, homophobic bigot. And that's what you just heard articulated here. I mentioned it the other day when Matthew Dowd, who advised George W. Bush 20 years ago when he was president of the United States, when Matthew Dowd said that Charlie Hurt peddled in hate speech, and when you deliver hate speech, you end up reaping hateful actions. That's what Matthew Dowd said. Every single political position that Charlie Kirk voiced on a regular basis with his platform were what George W. Bush, when president of the United States, claimed he supported as well. Pro-life, anti-gay marriage, pro-secure borders, enforcing our immigration laws, pro-law and order, strong on crime, supporting Israel, on and on and on. Matthew Dowd made a very beautiful, hefty paycheck from your tax dollars when he worked in the White House and from your campaign donations when he worked for the Bush campaign. He happily cashed those checks and claimed that he supported those political ideals too. But now, because he's on the outside looking in, he calls all of those positions hate speech that deserve violent recourse. This is what they've done. This is what they've done. And you and I, we're just still standing here, loving our country and loving our faith and trying to raise our kids and trying to follow the rules. And if we dare not agree with them and follow them off the radical left-wing cliff, we're the problem. And that's exactly what you just heard from Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar. By the way, she also issued some sort of statement. It's not an apology. In fact, she claims that what you just saw is fake news and a lie. While I disagreed with Charlie Kirk vehemently about his rhetoric, my heart breaks for his wife and children. I don't wish violence on anyone. My faith teaches me the power of peace. What was her faith again? Oh, yeah, that's right. The peaceful religion. Forgot about that. Empathy and compassion. Right-wing accounts trying to spin a false story when I condemned his murder multiple times is fitting for their agenda to villainize the left, to hide from the fact that Donald Trump gins up hate on a daily basis. Then she gives a link to the full interview. Yeah, we're not going to give Mehdi Hassan or you the clicks, ma'am. We're not spinning anything. Those were your words. They weren't out of context. I have more respect for you if you stood up and said, yeah, I said what I said. I don't want him dead, but let's face it. Which is exactly what she said. But, you know, we continue to get all of these calls to tone down the rhetoric and dial it back. And, you know, oh, gosh, how did we get here? And maybe now it's going to be, yeah, well, I hate to break it to you, but Jasmine Crockett is right back where she's always been, as if nothing happened on September 10th. Here she is today.
Me disagreeing with you, me calling you, you know, I want to be Hitler. All those things are like not necessarily saying go out and hurt somebody. But when you're literally telling people at rallies, yeah, beat them up and that kind of stuff, like you are promoting like a culture of violence.
So there's Jasmine Crockett trying to make a point, I guess, somewhere in there. And I do love Charlemagne the God on Breakfast Club, just as if that was coherent. But I deciphered it. And what she's saying is, hey, it's okay if we call Trump wannabe Hitler, because that's not calling for violence. But the stuff Trump says, well, yeah, that's calling for violence. And that we have to condemn. But it's okay if we call Trump a wannabe Hitler. And so, of course, as if nothing happened this week, she goes ahead and calls Trump a wannabe Hitler. Listen, I'm doing my best to hold on to hope and be positive and think that things are going to change here. I really am. And every little glimmer of hope I'm going to deliver to you because we need it right now. But they got to give me something to work with here, our buddies over on the left. And if what we just showed you is any indication, they got a long way to go. Hopefully, they're going to unplug a little bit, put the phone down, touch some grass this weekend, and then we'll come back Monday and we'll see if they're in a better place. I promise I will be.